Shoot first and ask questions later. This is a phrase that perfectly sums up how it feels to play Downwell. This is a platformer game where you spend most of your time falling. While you can't really move upwards, you can slow down your fall a bit with your gun boots. And yes, gun boots are exactly what they sound like. Firing your gun boots doesn't make you jump, they just cancel some of your downwards momentum. That is, until gravity takes over again, sending you plummeting straight down. They're good for giving you a second to stop and think, and not a moment longer. Because of that, Downwell is a game designed around the concept of fire and forget. You fly by everything so quickly, to a point where you don't even have time to think about what was on screen 5 frames ago. Of course, Downwell is far from the first game to be designed like this, but I feel that it's one of the best examples of it. For that reason, I think it's worth looking into, so we can get a better understanding of the mindset that goes into making these kinds of games. In this episode of Games by Design, we're going to take a look at Downwell's Fire and Forget design, and what makes it work so well. As we just went over, Downwell is a very fast game. Fast enough to the point where enemies and platforms are only on screen for less than 2 seconds in most cases. With so little time to take in what's happening, having clear art direction is a necessity for a game like this, and sure enough, Downwell delivers on that. As you've probably noticed, this game's entire color palette only has 3 colors: black, white, and green. Well, it's actually black, white, and red, but you unlock alternate color palettes, and that's what I'm using here. Look, the main point is that there are 3 distinct colors. Black serves as the background, which is good for making everything else stand out in front of it. White serves as the foreground, representing everything that's safe for the player to stand on, like platforms. And finally, green represents danger, which are things that hurt the player. Everything on the screen is just one of these 3 colors, and that makes the game instantly digestible for the player. When you look at your screen for most games, you have to spend a bit of time mentally separating gameplay objects from artistic backgrounds. When you heavily strip a game of its artistic detail like Downwell does, you're able to spot gameplay objects at just one glance. And for a game moving 100 miles an hour, digestibility like that is a huge upside. That's not even to mention how motion and animation are used in this game. Enemies are animated and they move around, while the rest of the level doesn't. When you see something moving, your attention gets drawn to it. Your mind quickly separates it from the rest of the background as its own special entity. In this game, when you see something moving, your mind can immediately tell that it's an enemy. That makes the game's art style even more digestible to players. Thanks to how Downwell uses colors and motion, you can tell what's going on in less than a split second, and that's half of what makes the speed of this game so bearable for players. The other half of what makes the speed of this game tolerable is how the game actually plays. This is a game that only has 3 buttons. 2 of those buttons are used for moving left and right, and the other one is used for jumping and firing your gun boots. This simplicity makes it easy for the player to think fast when they're reacting to the game. Meanwhile, if the controls were more convoluted, many players would quickly feel overwhelmed. Giving the player more options would turn the game from something you could play into something only top-level gamers could play. At the same time, thanks to constant player upgrades, the gameplay isn't too simple to the point of feeling shallow. Between levels, you'll gain passive abilities that slightly tweak how you play the game. More importantly, you'll always be finding different gun types, which change how your gun boots fire. They change how many bullets you fire, how much damage they do, how much ammo it costs to shoot, and how much they slow down your falling momentum. These are only small tweaks, but they make a big difference thanks to the nature of precision platforming in this game. When your positioning and movement matter as much as they do in Downwell, the smallest changes to your gun boots actually mean something. While we're on the topic of gun types, there's another important thing to address. When it comes to weapon variety in any game, a common issue that pops up is players choosing only 1 or 2 weapons to use for the whole game. Downwell addresses this with a clever little idea. Every time you pick up a new gun type, you also get some extra health or ammo with it, which are both desirable resources for players. Those incentives encourage players to get out of their comfort zones and change things up every time they come across a gun upgrade. Upgrades like this keep the gameplay constantly changing, even if little by little. They don't give you time to get comfortable with your current loadout, and as a result, they don't give you time to get bored with it either. And a nice little detail is that if you don't want a gun upgrade, the game never forces you to take it. That actually leads to our next point, how Downwell handles pacing. While Downwell is a fast-paced game at heart, the player is still in control of some of that pacing, at least at the beginning. New players can choose to move at a slower pace. You can take a break whenever you find a platform to stand on. If you want to spend a long time carefully moving through the first level, you can. This is important since it gives new players control while they learn how to get better at the game. You don't have to plunge into intense gameplay from the get-go like some other fast-paced games force you to do. That fact alone encourages new players to stick around and play the game for longer than they otherwise would. It's less alienating for them. At the same time, Downwell wants you to play fast. It may start out beginner-friendly, but the game funnels you down a path that gets harder and harder. You can most clearly see this in how the game handles level design. In the first world, you can virtually stand on any platforms, making pretty much any spot a safe haven. Meanwhile, in the second world, you can stand on most platforms, but some of them shoot out spikes a moment after making contact. If you want to avoid taking damage, you'll need to spend more time in the air. Continuing the trend, the third world has even fewer safe spots to stand at. Not only that, but it also has an oxygen meter that gives you less time to stand around. Both of these facts push you to play the game at a faster pace, since you have less opportunities to take it slow. That all leads to the final world, where the floor is basically lava and there's virtually no solid ground to stand on. Every platform breaks when you land on it, so you're going to have to be always moving or else you'll get hurt. To sum up everything, the game becomes more brutal with the farther in you get. If you want to beat the game, you have to learn how to play it fast. In other words, you have to master it. Now, something important to note is that Downwell is a roguelike game. That means that every time you play, you have to revisit each level in chronological order. This could be an issue for skilled players trying to reach later levels, since they would have to go through early levels to do so. And since the early levels are easy for skilled players, the game would risk making them bored. However, Downwell has a solution to this issue. Level design isn't the only way this game pushes you into playing faster. When enemies are defeated, they drop gems, which are a useful currency for buying some items. When these gems do drop, they fall straight down and they despawn quickly. If you want to collect those gems, you have to go down fast to grab them before they expire. That simple mechanic pushes players to play more aggressively than they otherwise would, just to get some more money. It doesn't just stop there though. If you collect 100 gems in a short time, you activate a state called a gem high. Being in a gem high gives your bullets more damage and more range. In order to maintain this gem high, you need to constantly renew it by picking up more gems quickly. Cleverly enough, the gem high itself and its renewal mechanic both push you into playing more aggressively at a faster pace. In other words, both the prize and the effort to get the prize nudge you into playing the game the way the developer wants you to play it. And we haven't even talked about combos yet. When you take out enemies without touching the ground, you start to chain a combo. As your combo gets higher, you get rewarded with valuable resources like gems, health, and ammo. This incentivizes players to play as if the floor is lava when it actually isn't. Thanks to combos and gem highs, repeat runs through early levels are still fun. They have these optional layers of challenge for more experienced players. While new players have the space to take the game slowly, Downwell gradually funnels them into one specific playstyle: fire and forget. The minimalist art direction and simple control scheme set the stage for gameplay that's fast-paced, but still manageable. The world designs, the gem high mechanic, and the combo system all nudge you into playing the game faster. You keep getting faster and faster until you have no time to think about anything other than what's happening on your screen right now. If you made a mistake, you can't get upset about it because the game doesn't give you time for that. You have to focus on what's happening in the moment. At the same time, Downwell doesn't overdo it with the intensity. When you're in upgrade rooms and between levels, you're inside these little spaces that the game calls time voids. These spaces cause the game to pause for as long as you want it to. Time voids give you a moment to take a short breather before plunging back into the fast action, which is excellent for fluidity. A lot of fast action games don't do this, and it causes the player to mentally burn out a lot faster than they otherwise would. Having these time voids every few dozen seconds helps pace the game better, staving off that burnout effect. Everything in Downwell comes together to reinforce this concept of fire and forget. This is a playstyle that puts you deep in the zone in a way that most games simply don't. For game designers looking to make fast-paced action games, Downwell is a case study well worth your time. This has been Games by Design, and I hope you enjoyed. If you want to support this channel, I would kindly ask that you consider liking, commenting, subscribing, or even sharing this video with a friend who might be interested. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good one.